You've had moments you couldn't explain. Not visions, not voices, not anything dramatic enough to put into words at a Bible study or share on a Sunday morning. Just moments. The accident that should have happened and didn't. The decision you almost made and something stopped you. The night you hit the lowest point you'd ever been. And somehow, by morning, you were still standing. You didn't tell many people about those moments. Because how do you explain something you can't prove? How do you describe a protection you never saw coming and never saw at all? So you filed it away, called it luck, called it timing. Maybe on a quiet night, you whispered the word miracle. But even then, something in you wasn't sure you were allowed to claim it. Here's what nobody told you. Those moments had a name. And today, you're going to recognize them, one by one, for exactly what they were. Not hypothetical signs, not spiritual theory. Moments you already lived. Moments that are about to make complete sense for the first time. Stay with this, because what you're about to recognize is going to change how you see everything that came before and everything still coming. Moment number one, the escape that had no explanation. Think about the closest call you've ever had. Not a metaphor, a real moment. A car that swerved. A diagnosis that came back different than expected. A situation that escalated. And then, without reason, stopped. You walked away from something that should have landed differently. And part of you has never fully processed why. We're trained to call those moments lucky. We live in a world that is deeply uncomfortable with the idea that something unseen intervened on your behalf. That the outcome you experienced was not random, but arranged. But the Bible does not describe a God who watches from a distance and hopes things work out. Psalm 91 verse 11 says, "For he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways." Not sometimes, not when you've earned it, in all your ways. The word command matters here. This is not a passive suggestion. This is a direct assignment. An angel dispatched with specific instructions concerning you, with your name attached to the order. Here's what that means in real life. The close call wasn't luck. The narrow escape wasn't coincidence. Something was standing between you and what was coming, and it held the line. You didn't see it. You weren't supposed to. Angelic protection was never designed to be visible. It was designed to be effective. Think about that for a moment. The most powerful guard you've ever had. You never once saw his face. And yet the evidence of his presence is written all over your survival. That moment you couldn't explain, it was the first sign, and it wasn't the last. Moment number two, the peace that should not have been there. There's a specific kind of peace you've experienced that doesn't make sense when you examine it honestly. Not the peace that comes after resolution. Not the calm that follows a storm once it's over. The peace that arrived inside the storm, while everything was still uncertain, while the diagnosis hadn't come back yet, while the relationship was still fracturing, while the money hadn't appeared and the deadline was already passed. Somehow, in the middle of it, there was stillness. You may have dismissed it, told yourself you were in shock, or numb, or simply too exhausted to feel the fear anymore. But what if it wasn't numbness? What if something was actively ministering to you in that moment? Not removing the difficulty, but covering you inside of it. Hebrews 1 verse 14 asks a question that reframes everything. Are they not all ministering spirits sent out to serve for the sake of those who are to inherit salvation? Ministering, not just guarding, not just blocking danger. Ministering, which means tending to, attending to, caring for the interior condition of a person who is under pressure. Angels don't only stand at the gates. Sometimes they sit with you in the waiting room. Sometimes they're the reason you didn't collapse in the parking lot after the hard conversation. Sometimes they're why you woke up the next morning with just enough strength to take one more step. You felt that. You know exactly what I'm describing. That moment when the panic should have swallowed you whole, and it didn't. That night when despair had every reason to win, and something in you held. That wasn't just resilience. That was ministry. If this is already sounding like your life, let that be your yes. Press like, not for this channel, but as an acknowledgement to yourself that what you've been living has been real. Because what comes next is going to go even deeper. Moment number 3, the feeling that you are not alone. You've had a moment, maybe more than one, where the room felt different. Not haunted, not frightening, full. A silence that didn't feel empty. An awareness that something was present that you couldn't see and couldn't prove and couldn't entirely dismiss. A stillness that felt inhabited rather than hollow. You may have never told anyone about that moment, because it sounds strange when you try to put it into words. And the last thing you wanted was to sound like someone who had lost their grip on reality. But you didn't lose your grip. You brushed up against something real. In 2 Kings 6, the prophet Elisha and his servant were surrounded by an enemy army. The servant panicked. He saw only the threat, and Elisha prayed a simple prayer. "O Lord, please open his eyes that he may see." And suddenly the servant saw what had been there the entire time. The hills were full of horses and chariots of fire. An entire army of the unseen, already positioned, already present, already standing between them and the danger. They were there before the prayer. The prayer didn't summon them. The prayer opened eyes to what was already true. That's what this moment is for you. The presence you sensed was not your imagination running ahead of your faith. It was your spirit, the part of you that was made to recognize the eternal, picking up on something your eyes couldn't confirm. You were not alone in that room. You have never been alone in any room. The question was never whether they were there. The question was always whether you were willing to believe what your spirit already knew. Moment number 4, the door that closed before you could walk through it. Some of the most significant angelic activity in your life will never look like protection. It will look like disappointment, the opportunity that fell through at the last minute, the relationship that ended before it really began, the plan you had built carefully, piece by piece, and then watch collapse without warning. You grieve those things. Some of them you're still grieving. But consider this carefully. Not every closed door is a failure. Some closed doors are assignments. Exodus 23 verse 20 records God speaking directly to his people. "Behold, I send an angel before you to guard you on the way and to bring you to the place that I have prepared." To bring you to the place I have prepared. Not the place you prepared. Not the destination you mapped out. The place you prepared. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, the angel's assignment is not to open the road ahead. It's to block the road that leads somewhere you were never meant to go. Here's what that looks like in real life. The person who seemed right, but something in you stayed uneasy. The deal that almost closed but kept falling through no matter what you did. The door you knocked on repeatedly, and it simply never opened. You called it bad timing. You called it bad luck. You may have even called it God ignoring you. But what if the resistance you felt was not absence, but intervention? What if the angel sent before you was doing exactly what he was assigned to do? Guarding the way, redirecting the path, holding back what was not prepared for you. The place he has prepared is still ahead, and every closed door behind you is part of how you get there. Moment number 5, the strength that came from somewhere else. There are moments in your life when you know, with absolute honesty, that you should have broken. By every reasonable measure, you did not have what was required to get through what you got through. The season was too long. The weight was too heavy. The losses came too close together. The people who should have stayed, left. And you were standing there with less than you started with, being asked to keep going. And somehow you did. You may have credited yourself, told yourself you were stronger than you thought. And there is truth in that. But there is also something else. In Daniel 10 verses 18 to 19, after a period of profound spiritual and physical exhaustion, an angel appears to Daniel and says, "O man greatly loved, fear not, peace be with you. Be strong and of good courage." And then the text says, "And as he spoke to me, I was strengthened, not by his own willpower, not by positive thinking, not by resting or recovering or waiting until he felt ready. As he spoke, Daniel was strengthened." There is a kind of strength that does not come from inside you. It enters you. It arrives from outside the limits of what you had available and fills exactly the gap between what you had and what the moment required. You felt that. The morning you woke up after a devastating night and found yourself, somehow, able to function. The conversation you had no strength for, and yet the words came. The moment the breaking point arrived, and you didn't break. That wasn't just you. That was something being poured into you from a source you didn't earn and couldn't manufacture. And the reason it came is the same reason it always comes. Because you are greatly loved, and love does not watch you collapse when it has the power to hold you up. Write that in the comments. Not for this channel, but for yourself. Type greatly loved as a declaration. Because what you're about to receive in the next 2 moments may be the most important part of this entire video. Moment number 6. The credit you took that belonged to someone else. This is the moment in the video that requires honesty, not condemnation. Honesty. How many times have you looked back at a difficult season and said, I got through that because of my faith, because of my strength, because I held on, and you did hold on. That is real and it counts. But here's the question that changes everything. What was holding you while you held on? Because the Bible does not describe a Christian life in which God gives you strength and then steps back to watch you perform. It describes a life surrounded, actively, continuously, invisibly surrounded by agents of his care who are working in the details you never see. Psalm 34 verse 7 says, The angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear him and delivers them. Encamps, present tense, ongoing, not a visit, a station presence, a guard who does not clock out. Here's what that means for every hard thing you've ever survived. You were never the only one in the room. The wisdom that arrived when you didn't have any. Where did it come from? The protection that held when you weren't even praying. Who was standing guard? The deliverance that came at the last possible moment. Who arranged the timing? This is not about taking away your story. Your perseverance is real. Your faith is real. Your obedience cost you something real. But there is a humility available to you right now. A sacred, freeing humility that says, I didn't get through that alone, and I was never supposed to. That realization doesn't diminish what you survived. It reveals how loved you were inside of it. Moment number 7. The realization that you are someone worth guarding. Everything in this video has been building to this. Not to information, to identity. Because here's the question underneath every moment we've walked through today. Why you? Why would God command angels concerning you specifically? Why would ministering spirits be sent to serve someone living an ordinary life in an ordinary house in an ordinary city, navigating bills and relationships and health scares and quiet doubts at 2 in the morning? Why would heaven mobilize on your behalf? The answer is not found in your performance, not in your consistency, not in how long you've been a Christian or how clean your record looks. The answer is in the word Hebrews 1 verse 14 uses. Those who are to inherit salvation. Heirs, not employees, not applicants. Heirs. An heir doesn't earn protection. An heir receives it because of who they belong to and what has been assigned to them. The guard at the door of a royal household is not there because the child has proven themselves worthy. The guard is there because of whose child they are. You are whose child you are. In the moments you've been recognizing throughout this video, the escapes, the peace, the presence, the closed doors, the borrowed strength, the survival that exceeded your own capacity, they were not random acts of grace distributed to the spiritually deserving. They were the normal, continuous, commissioned activity of heaven, operating in the ordinary hours of your ordinary life, because you belong to the one who commands it. You have never been unguarded, not in the years you were faithful, not in the years you were wandering, not in the seasons when you weren't sure you believed anymore. The guard did not leave when your faith got small. The commission didn't expire when you stopped feeling it. You were watched over in your worst moments with the same intensity as in your best. That is the God you serve. You came into this video carrying something you didn't have a name for, a collection of moments, unexplained, unresolved, filed somewhere between maybe and I don't know what that was. You have a name for them now. Those were not accidents. They were not coincidences. They were not the random collisions of a universe indifferent to your existence. They were the fingerprints of a presence that has been stationed around your life. Not because you earned it, not because you were always faithful, not because you had it all together, but because you were loved, specifically, by name, by the God who does not leave assignments unfinished. Psalm 91 verse 11 does not say, He might command His angels concerning you. It does not say if you qualify. It says He will. It is a promise built into the architecture of what it means to belong to Him. You have always been covered. In the moment you almost didn't make it, covered. In the night you felt completely alone, covered. In the season you stopped asking, still covered. Go back to your life with different eyes now. Not looking for dramatic signs. Not waiting for something visible. Just aware. Quietly, deeply, unshakably aware. That you do not walk through a single ordinary moment unaccompanied. The same God who sent angels to guard Elisha's mountain, to strengthen Daniel in his exhaustion, to encamp around those who fear Him. He has not changed His methods. He has not changed His mind about you. If this video opens something in your spirit, if you're leaving here more certain than when you arrived, don't lose that. Subscribe and stay close. Every video here is built for exactly this, to give language to what your spirit already knows, and to take you one step deeper into who you actually are. You were never walking alone. You never will be.